the morning's newspapers with the political editor of the HuffPost, Kevin Schofield, and the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson. Now, we were just talking about football, but we're not going to do that a little later on.
Go on, please.
Let's go to the front pages before we get to the back. And Kevin, we're going to take a look at this in The Guardian because, I mean, not quite that time of year, but it is coming. And there is calls to have the access to COVID jabs widened.
Yeah, so we'd almost kind of forgotten, that about COVID, really. I think as a country, people are just ready to move on. However, there is a new variant of the COVID virus called the Parola. BA.2.86, which apparently can evade some vaccines, and at the moment the rules are that anyone over 65 has been invited to get their booster jab. MPs are saying that should be reduced to 50, because if not, then we're potentially heading into flu, COVID season. It could really put massive pressure on the NHS, which every year is under intense pressure, and this could just make it even worse if it's a particularly bad COVID and flu season. So unfortunately, we like to think, as I say, that we're through the pandemic. We are through the pandemic, but COVID is still there, and it's still a risk to the NHS.
It always will be.
It's very
It's not going to go away.
I think 30-something cases in care homes here. There have been cases, I think, found in the US and Canada. There's fear that it might be transmitted in the community, but it's not a variant of concern just yet, thankfully.
Yeah, and with this, I think a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, will be reading that headline and going, I'm done with the jabs.
But you don't see anyone with masks on anymore.
No.
As I say, I think mentally people have just moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the front of the Express. And Dawn, you picked this out. And the headline there, woke in inverted commas, judges under attack.
I really didn't want to pick this one out because the word woke just actually sends shivers down my spine these days because it's overused in every context.
And I'm never quite sure what people mean when they use woke.
I'm not going to go down that particular road. This is woke judges under attack. And is it possible to be a judge without being woke these days? This is it's a report by a barrister called Michael Arnheim, and it's a report for Civitas, which are either a centre-right or a right-wing think tank, depending on what newspaper you actually read, but they're right of centre in any case. And it's about fixing human rights laws. And this senior lawyer has found that politically correct rulings protect special interest groups instead of the majority. And he's basically calling for a tougher migration policy, i.e. kind of doing what Greece do with the pushback, with the small boats coming across the channel. We don't escort them into British waters, we push them back. It seems to be working for Greece, is the implication here. But it is it's basically saying that it's like lawyers are literally running the country rather than the elected MPs and dictating what happens for a small minority rather than the majority of people.
But the problem with the word woke and with that idea is that runs up against international law, which is why the judges are...
Exactly.
Well, that's the judges are only interpreting what is the law, and I think this sort of is the context politically of this is that there is increasing calls amongst Conservative MPs for the UK to leave the European Convention on Human Rights.
Human rights.
Which would be massively controversial.
Yeah, and plus human rights, it's for all of us, by the way. It is for all of us.
Quite important, I would say, yeah.
It does. All right, we haven't got loads of time. Let's crack on. And Kevin, we're going to look at this inside the... paper is that?
The Times.
The Times, thank you very much. Rishi Sunak fired up to win the next election while he's in the G20. And the picture there of Boris and Zelensky.
Well, one note is that Boris Johnson appears to have lost a lot of weight.
Did he?
I would say so. Yeah. Anyway,
that's always running. He's always doing his early morning runs.
That's by the by.
Not that bad running, by the way. I mean, those shorts.
It's a very good question. I mean, despite all the available evidence, Rishi Sunak apparently thinks that the Tories are going to win the next election. I guess he's got to say that.
Yes.
He's confident. He says he's fired up. What else can he say? But I think the problem the Conservatives have got is that a lot of people look at that headline and just roll their eyes and say, "Come on, mate,
I mean, he couldn't have had a worse start to term, could he? Really? It's just.
He had a few issues to sort out, didn't
the summer wasn't great either.
The summer was awful. We're always being told he's going to get on the front foot.
They've had special weeks, haven't they? They've had Small Boats Week. That went disaster wrong. NHS Week.
Rubbish.
And last week was Concrete Week. Yeah. And we all know what happened there.
And then you've got prisoners escaping from jail and everything. So yeah, I think.
But it's fighting talk, isn't it? And what do you expect him to say? We're a bit rubbish. We're not going to win. It's got to go in
even
there.
Conservative MPs don't think that they're going to win the next election, to be honest with you, apart from a tiny minority.
Well, how many of them have resigned?
Many of them resigned.
Yeah. Which tells its own story, really.
Yeah. I mean, he'll want to come back from the G20 with something to report, I guess, from that trade deal. But whether or not is that enough of an election winner? questioners there. All right, quick talk. We've got 2 minutes now.
Okay.
Let's look at the front of the mirror.
Yeah.
And then, of course, tributes paid.
This is the only paper, by the way, that has the royals on it. It's tributes to Queen Elizabeth II. It was the first anniversary of her passing yesterday, and I can't believe that's gone so fast, a year. So they've got a lovely picture, as you can see there, of William and Kate paying their respects. As we know, King Charles put out a very emotional statement about his mum. And it was just, you know, the family weren't necessarily together. William and Kate were in Wales, Charles and Camilla are in Scotland, and Harry popped in briefly before going over to the Invictus Games. It was just, I think it was a day, whether you're Republican or Royalist, the Queen's death, I think, affected all of us in a way. It was like, it was
she was always
sad.
there,
She was always there.
Regardless of your view.
Yeah, and I was surprised at how sad I felt again yesterday. I was lucky enough to cover it, ironically, for Sky last year, standing outside Buckingham Palace. And it was like, I still felt sad again, Kamal. It was like,
It's just that passing of time as well, isn't it? As you say, it's amazing. It's come around so quickly. We've been in the Carolean era for a year now.
We have indeed, yeah, and it seems to have gone pretty well for Charles, I think, so far. It doesn't...
I think he's hit the ground running.
Non-controversial.
Non-controversial.
Yes.
Which is an achievement for him, I think.
That's the best you can hope for these days, whether you're a royal or a politician.
Absolutely. Try to stay out of trouble. All right, Kevin, Dawn, thank you very much. My editors just pointed out that you two are colour coordinators.
We did,
Did you think about this?
Yeah, we phoned this morning.
memo.
Going to do the
Excellent
pink.
stuff. I'll do it. Just tell me. Dawn, Kevin, thank you. See you again next time.